Wrestling fans, are you ready?
Yes! Yes! Yes!
For the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, let's get ready to rumble!
I am the voice of the voiceless.
Do I have everybody's attention now?
Sorry about your damn luck.
I deserve one more match.
It's gonna be the end of the world as you know it.
Welcome back, folks, to another electric edition of WrestleRant Radio here today for July 22nd, 2014. I am your host with the most, Bleacher Report featured columnist Graham G.S.M. Matthews. A very big show of WrestleRant Radio here today. Lot on tap. We've got the Battleground review, Raw review, and in the second portion of the show, I will be airing my exclusive interview with one of the owners and someone who works at the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, Mr. John Soto. Me and my friend John Nichols, who I will have on the show next week for an in-depth analysis of the WWE Network and part one of a two-part interview that I did with John over the weekend, and I'll get to that in a minute. But our exclusive interview, both John and I talked to Mr. John Soto, an administrator of the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, up in Amsterdam, New York. We talked to him over this past weekend on Saturday afternoon when we drove up there. During our camping trip, I had a hell of a time. Wasn't the first time we've been there. We actually went there for the first time about 3 years ago in August of 2011. So to go back there and talk to Mr. John Soto about a number of things, about WWE, TNA, The Shield, Brock Lesnar, KENTA, Dean Ambrose, you name it, we talked about it in an amazing 25-minute interview, and I cannot thank Mr. John Soto enough for that great interview. So we'll be airing that in the second portion of the show. That is still to come, and like I said before, a number of great shows of WrestleRant Radio coming in weeks ahead. Like I said before, next week I'll be airing my part one of two-part interview with my very good friend, Mr. John Nichols. Been friends with him for a very long time. Our love for wrestling runs deep. We sat down for 2 hours on Saturday just talking about wrestling alone, and we could have gone on for hours more had our friend not had to go to bed that night. We were sharing a cabin with my brothers, and he had to go to bed, and it was about midnight, so had it not been midnight, we probably could have gone on for many more hours from that point forward. But nevertheless, two-part interview with John Nichols coming in weeks to come, next week and the week after that, going into SummerSlam. But this week will be my exclusive interview with Mr. John Soto of Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame in Amsterdam, New York. But before we get to any of that, lots of talk when it comes to WWE, as well as TNA. I'll just give my brief thoughts on TNA real quick. Not going to do a rundown of my exclusive interview or anything like that. A full review, I guess I should say, of the latest episode of Impact Wrestling that aired this past Thursday night on Spike TV, the first of the New York tapings. What I thought was a great show, maybe good by WWE standards or by regular wrestling standards, I guess you should say, but by TNA standards and all the shit they've been putting out for the last few months, this was a great show, a great rebirth, so to speak, of the TNA promotion, Impact Wrestling, whatever you want to call it. Lots of great stuff happening. Really enjoyed Bobby Lashley, or just Lashley, I guess as they're calling them now, versus Jeff Hardy for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. The opening tag team match with EC3 and Rhino taking on Bully Ray and Tommy Dreamer. Very fun match there. We also had in the main event, or the closing segment of the show, which I didn't necessarily think should have closed the show, but it was what it was, with the reunion of Team 3D, putting EC3 through a table. So a lot of great stuff on Impact this past week. Like I said, not going to give my full review, but I will say right now, TNA is heading in the right direction. A lot of great stuff. I heard rave reviews regarding their tapings in New York a couple of weeks ago. And actually, interestingly enough, they are coming back to New York in early August. And like I just said, when I went camping up with John, up in the New York area, that's where the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame is located. We are camping out in Saugerties, New York. The next TNA tapings are in the same location that they were back in late June, in the Manhattan Center in New York, New York. So with that being said, depending if I can get off from work and all the logistical issues of it, all from that kind of side of it and whatever else, I might be going to one of those shows. They're taping the Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of the first week of August, and I think that is the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, or the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. I'm not exactly sure. But either way, I'm looking forward to it. It should be a hell of a time, and I'm really hoping to be able to go, because these latest shows, and I don't read the spoilers, but from what I've heard, they were probably the best tapings that TNA has done in years. So their first show, I give it a thumbs up, a success. I enjoyed it. Here's hoping TNA can stay the course with their tapings in weeks ahead. So let's go right into Battleground right here. The show aired this past Sunday night, July 20th, 2014, airing on the WWE Network live from Tampa, Florida. I personally thought it was a very good show. Maybe it was just me. I know a lot of people said it was lackluster, it was terrible. Some people are still calling it, much like the prior installment of the pay-per-view, the quote-unquote worst pay-per-view of the year thus far. I didn't personally think so. I could see why people thought the show that way. I'm not saying it was WrestleMania 30 caliber or anything along those lines. But for what it was, I thought it was a very good show. And I'll give my 2 cents on that right now. So kicking off the show in the 2 kickoff matches, and it was announced for the pay-per-view just hours before the pay-per-view went live. On the kickoff, one of 2 matches was Ambrose versus Fandango. Both guys were announced for the Intercontinental Championship Battle Royal, but both were pulled from the contest a few days ago and had a match on this show. It really didn't serve much of a purpose outside of furthering the feud between Fandango, Summer Rae, and Layla, who I guess, and I'll get to this in just a second, are being positioned as the new beautiful people of the WWE in a ripoff of TNA's stable with Angelina Love and Velvet Sky. And like I said, I'll get to that in a second and my 2 cents on that and the bullshit that surrounds it. But for what this was, it was kind of a waste of a matchup between Ambrose and Fandango. I think my thoughts on the love triangle involving Summer Rae, Layla, and Fandango are pretty well documented. It's been going on for far over 2 months now. Much longer than it should have, 2 months longer than it should have gone on for. I don't know if Summer Rae and Layla are supposed to be baby faces, or if I'm supposed to feel sympathetic towards Fandango for being the victim in all of this and not doing really anything to really deserve any of this, aside from 2-timing Layla and Summer Rae. I'm not exactly sure how I'm supposed to feel, but what I am feeling about this angle is annoyance, and I'm personally annoyed by everything that goes on between Fandango, Summer Rae, and Layla. Waste of a matchup. Why it was even added, I have no idea. Adam Rose goes over, and the Adam Rose experiment so far has been a failure as far as I'm concerned. I'm a big Rosebud, don't get me wrong. Love the guy, love the gimmick. I guess WWE just saw it as a failure, and if they see the gimmick as a failure, then that's when it won't get over. If they start to push it, or at least try to push it, then it will get over, but they never even made an attempt. So that's the issue with Adam Rose. But like I said before, I'll get to this now. There was a report a couple of days ago, I think maybe late last week or during the weekend or something like that, that basically stated in so many words that WWE was making Summer Rae and Layla the new beautiful people of the WWE. Now, you go back a number of years to 2009, 2010, when we had Laycool in the WWE, Layla and Michelle McCool respectively, probably arguably the most annoying diva stable, couple, whatever you want to say, duo of all time. Hated Laycool. Maybe they didn't get the heat that they were looking for. Maybe they got more of go-away heat than anything else. But I personally hated Laycool. I'm a big fan of Michelle McCool and all that she's accomplished in the WWE, but Laycool, you can clearly see, I could see that as being a ripoff of the Beautiful People, and it's no secret, I mean, it's been pretty well known for years on end now, that the knockout segments for TNA have always drawn bigger and stronger ratings than anything else in the quarter-hour ratings of Impact every single Thursday. So for WWE to try to repeat that in their company with 2 very similar characters in Michelle McCool and Layla was not surprising. I could very well see that WWE was trying to rip off TNA. People complain all the time, myself included, about how much TNA rips off WWE, but they really fail to see how much WWE copies from TNA as well. They both copy from each other, let's face it, and they both copy from history that's repeated itself. I mean, nothing is ever original nowadays. Everything is basically a spin-off or a twist on something that's happened before. So, that being said, I'm not at all denying that Michelle McCool and Layla were the WWE's version of the Beautiful People in an attempt to get them ratings and have them be the quarter-hour ratings or the strongest ratings for Raw, whatever. I'm not denying that, but I am denying the fact that Summer Rae and Layla are supposed to be the new Beautiful People. I know the Beautiful People are back together in TNA and have been for a number of months now. And apparently, according to this report, they put Summer Rae and Layla together because they want this to be their new Lay Cool. And with Michelle McCool no longer being in the company, they just put Summer Rae in that position. They put her in that role instead just because she's blonde, just like Michelle McCool was. And Michelle McCool is now retired, so they were unable to bring them back. So I guess that's purely speculation. I do not read any. I wouldn't read into that at all. If I were a casual reader of the dirt sheets, whatever, I wouldn't believe everything you read, especially when it comes to these kind of dirt sheets and these kind of reports. Purely speculation, purely BS. Layla and Summer Rae have no comparison to the Beautiful People in TNA. The Beautiful People in TNA, Love and Sky, respectively, have been doing the same thing for years. They did the same thing before that they're doing now. They really haven't changed their shtick at all. Summer Rae and Layla are doing nothing of what the Beautiful People is currently doing in TNA. You know, they're stripping down, they're, teasing referees, and I'm talking about the Beautiful People here, the real Beautiful People in TNA. You know, they're playing mind games with the referees, stuff like that. I understand that, and that's what they've been doing that for years. You go back to 09, 2010, 08, they've been doing that since the start of their shtick. So I'm not surprised by that, but WWE's PG product doesn't really allow Summer Rae and Layla to do any of that stuff and kind of tease a lesbian angle or whatever they were doing beforehand. Maybe Love and Sky could be seen that way, I'm not really sure. But in no way are Summer Rae and Layla anywhere similar to the Beautiful People of TNA currently. Summer Rae and Layla, all they're basically doing right now, as much as I hate it, all they're basically doing is coming down during Fandango's matches and causing him to lose. The Beautiful People are just making life miserable and just vicious as hell for anyone that comes in their path, whether it be Brittany or Madison Rayne or Gail Kim. They've been doing that since the start of time, and they probably will continue to do that going forward. Summer Rae and Layla aren't picking on the other divas in the division. If anything, like I said before, they're being positioned as baby faces. So I really don't see, I never really saw fans pick up on this after, before this report was issued, and I don't really read into it at all, just take it for what it's worth. And like I said before, it's not really a report more so than it is merely a speculation, merely it is an observation, because I see no similarities between Layla and Summer Rae in the Beautiful People. I'm not saying that WWE didn't attempt to rip off TNA. They have in the past, and they probably will in the future, and TNA will continue to do the same thing to WWE. I'm not picking sides here, but I do have a hard time believing that the entire Layla and Summer Rae act was solely based off of the Beautiful People in TNA, because their act is nothing like the Beautiful People in TNA at the moment. So I just wanted to get that out of the way, a brief rant on that. But that was what it was. Cameron defeated Naomi, pretty mediocre matchup, basically what you would expect from these two, especially given the fact that Cameron is not the best in-ring worker. Naomi carried her to a decent enough matchup, to a good enough matchup that Cameron could be involved in. Cameron picks up the win via dirty tactics after holding the tights of Naomi. A nice way of furthering the feud, although it wasn't furthered the next night on Raw, so I found that a bit weird, but hopefully we can get a rematch where Naomi goes over, because she's obviously being primed for a big-time push in the Divas division at some point in the near future. On the main card, kicking off the show, an amazing tag team match, the Usos taking on the Wyatt family in a 2 out of 3 count falls matchup for the WWE Tag Team Championships. Now, we knew this going in because their prior matches between the Usos and the Wyatt family have been stellar. I love their Money in the Bank matchup. Those were great. That was a great matchup. Their matches on Main Event, Raw, SmackDown, Superstars, everything. They're always awesome. They will continue to be awesome. And I've said this in my Raw reviews on my website, on here on the show a number of times, as soon as last week. I've said in the past that I'm getting a bit tired of seeing the Usos against the Wyatt family, but I'm not getting tired of the matches themselves, and this was no exception. The first 2 falls were a bit rushed. They weren't quick, much like, Sami Zayn and Cesaro. You go back to that matchup, the match of the year in NXT, late last year in August. Those falls were quick. Those were disappointing. At least these were a little bit more of a matchup. I think it was about 5 minutes in. that they gave away the first fall. So that was a bit, I didn't really see what the big problem was there, that some people are saying that was disappointing. I didn't really care about that all that much, although it is kind of hard to see that matchup being ended in 5 minutes after they went nearly 15 minutes at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view late last month. But nevertheless, the third and final fall in this contest was absolutely amazing. Strong work from both the Usos and the Wyatt family, both teams holding their own. The live crowd was heavily into the action during the course of this contest. A lot of near falls, the Usos hitting one of their splashes, one of their signature splashes, only for a 2 count. The Wyatt family going all out here. Easily one of the best tag team matches I've seen in a very long time. Quite honestly, probably the best tag team match I've seen since Cody Rhodes and Goldust beat the Shield, ironically enough, also at last year's Battleground pay-per-view. So I don't know if this is going to become an annual tradition at Battleground that the best tag team match of the year will be held at that event. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But anyway, in any case, a great matchup to kick off the show. Probably too great of a matchup that it really set the standard high for all the matches to come later on in the night. Maybe that's why people saw this matchup or saw this show as a disappointment, because none of the subsequent matches came close to touching this in terms of being just simply great. So awesome stuff there. I saw some people disappointed with the Usos retaining. I personally had no problem with it. If I was booking this, I would have given the titles to the Wyatt family here. And hell, who knows? I mean, no teaser, no sign was really given on Raw in terms of where this feud is going. If it's over, if it's continuing, I wouldn't be surprised if they gave the titles to the Wyatt family either on Raw next week, or maybe they hold another matchup at SummerSlam. And I'm not complaining. Like I said before, I'm getting tired of them facing each other, but I'm not getting tired of the matches they produce. Whether it be maybe even a tag team ladder match at SummerSlam, or maybe even a steel cage contest, I'm not exactly sure. But regardless of whether they continue this feud or not, this was a great matchup. I'm not at all disappointed that the Usos are still the WWE Tag Team Champions. They have been awesome champions since they won the titles 3 months, or what's it been, 5 months almost now, since they won the titles back in March. But the Usos, and I've said this before, I don't know if I've said this on the podcast before or not, but at the Raw show, and I mean, I lost my voice when I did this show a few days removed from Monday Night Raw in Hartford late last month, so I wasn't really able to talk about this. But the Usos are freaking over. The Usos are the only last real tag team in wrestling. I mean, you had Beer Money that was together for years on end. We really don't have any of those tag teams nowadays that are together for a very, very long time. The Usos have been together since day one, since they stepped foot in the WWE on the main roster over 4 years ago. And one can argue that they can't be split up given the fact that they're twin brothers, and I see no potential, I see no future for either of them in singles competition. But you take that aside, it doesn't really matter. I mean, the Usos, I would argue, are one, if not the best tag team in the last few years for WWE. I mean, we've got a number of great tag teams. You've got Jericho, Air Boom, Cody Rhodes and Goldust. And Cody Rhodes and Goldust are still technically together, but no one has been consistently booked better than the Usos over the last 4 years in their ascension into the tag team title picture. I mean, they've come up short time and time again over the last 4 years. So when it finally meant something, when they finally did win the tag team titles on Raw in Chicago back in March. So great stuff there. Really enjoyed their journey over the last 4 years. And, much less this contest. So I'm looking forward to see what's next to the Usos. I said this after Money in the Bank, last month. But I would not be surprised if a feud with the Ascension is in their near future. They didn't debut on Raw, but they've been teasing that feud for quite a while now via Twitter between the Usos and the Ascension. Both teams have been trading tweets over the last several months. So I would not be surprised to see the Ascension be called up. I think it's only a matter of time. They could produce a lot of great matches over the tag team titles. And it would be something new for the Usos, and I don't really see what other team can step up to challenge them for the title, seeing how Ryback is dead in the water. I don't see that tag team ever being positioned as a legitimate threat to the tag team titles again. And there's really no other tag team currently in the division that can go for the titles aside from maybe Stardust and Goldust, and I'm not a big fan of that team. And unless they turn them heel, I don't really see what future they have. But nevertheless, hopefully they can bring up the Ascension and kick off that feud as soon as possible. So up next on the show, we had AJ Lee and Paige for the Divas title. Good matchup here, probably not as good of a matchup as they could have produced, but as was the case with a lot of matches on this card, I suspect they were holding back a bit going into SummerSlam where they can truly deliver a barn burner of a contest. It was still a bit odd for the dynamic of this matchup, given the fact that they were both baby faces at the time. No longer after the turn on Raw, but I'll get to that in a few minutes. But good matchup from them. If anything, I'm just ecstatic that we're finally getting a story in the Divas division, a good one at that, between Paige and AJ. AJ goes over, still your Divas champion, and a good way to tie in to the subsequent turn from Paige on Monday Night's Raw. Like I said, I'll get to that in a minute. Up next, we had Rusev and Jack Swagger. Not a great matchup. I would say it was a good to decent contest from these two. Like I said before, another case of the two holding back, maybe going to SummerSlam where a rematch could be held. And if Raw was any indication, I don't know if the feud is being carried on going into SummerSlam or incoming months or whatever the case may be. Jack Swagger was nowhere to be seen on Raw this week, so I'm surely hoping that this is not the end of the line for the feud. If the comments that Lana made at Battleground when it pertains to the Ukraine tragedy and her referencing it to as current events in her promo and getting bad mainstream publicity for it from the mainstream media, I don't know if that had anything to do with it. I surely hope not, because Jack Swagger, and I talk about this in my interview with John in 2 weeks from now when it will be aired here on the show, that Jack Swagger, and he can attest to this because he was in the building too in Hartford on June 30th, Jack Swagger was one of the most over guys in the building that night, the night he turned babyface. He's insanely over, and it's not just the USA chants. People have been chanting, "Let's go Swagger." So it's easy to tell the guy is over, as is Zeb Colder, with his awesome mic skills. So I'm really, really hoping it's not the end of the line for Jack Swagger as a babyface, or the end of the line for this feud with Rusev, because I've been thoroughly enjoying it. So I thought the finish was very good. Smart booking with Rusev winning via countout. It didn't make Jack Swagger look weak at all, although they did mention on Raw that he lost via submission, which was weird. But even still, I hope to see a rematch between these two, either at SummerSlam or later down the line, because Jack Swagger and Rusev has been arguably one of the highlights of WWE TV, funny enough, over the last month or so since it first started. And I never thought I would say that, but as it pertains to the comments that Lana made at Battleground, I wasn't personally offended. I didn't notice them. I think I might have been distracted at the time that she made the comments. But it did garner a big reaction from the media on Monday morning in regards to WWE doing it out of bad taste. And someone asked me this on hashtag AskJSM this week. Go check out the video on YouTube for my full thoughts on it. But I'll just state them again here. I don't think at all that WWE should make reference to the tragedy, and why they even bothered to do so in the promo on Sunday night. I mean, I know they didn't directly reference it, saying the Ukraine tragedy or whatever, but the fact they even made slight reference to it in the quote-unquote terms of current events, whatever, it's risky, it's not smart, don't even try to push the envelope. It's a very PC-sensitive world nowadays that you can't do that kind of stuff. And even if they could do that kind of stuff, say this was the Attitude Era, I wouldn't even want to see this kind of stuff. It's a real-life issue where lives were lost. Don't toy with that. Don't play with it. Don't make an angle out of it. That's bullshit. I'm fine with the pro-Vladimir Putin stuff. That's okay. You can do that all you want. Continue to garner heat. I don't really care. Just don't make a joke, not more so make a joke, but don't even bother referencing at all in any way, shape, or form the real, very real tragedy of the Ukraine attack from last week. So that's my 2 cents on that. Up next, we almost had a matchup between Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose. I don't know if I was in the minority here. I saw some people disappointed that we didn't get this matchup. People paid for this pay-per-view just to see this contest. Maybe that's true, but being a WWE Network owner, maybe I'm just being selfish here, and a lot of people are watching these events on the WWE Network. It's not like you paid $60 for this matchup and you didn't get your money's worth because it didn't happen. It's a WWE Network. You're paying anyway. Who cares if it didn't happen? But that's not the reason why I'm happy it didn't occur. The reason I'm happy it didn't occur is because it can be later saved for SummerSlam. Right up there with Rusev and Swagger, AJ and Paige. There's a lot of great stuff happening now in the WWE, but one of the best feuds going on right now in WWE, arguably and personally one of my favorite feuds, if not my single favorite feud going on in WWE right now, is between Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins. Both guys have been playing their roles tremendously over the last number of months, so I'm looking forward to their initial encounter, and I thought their matchup at Battleground, whether it was going to happen or not, was premature. So I was very glad that it did not happen. They were all over the show regardless. Their brawl, which I thought was very, very hot, and did a great job of furthering their feud and not really giving too much away going into their eventual matchup at SummerSlam, which I do hope, will be held under no disqualification rules, much like Triple H and Shawn Michaels at the 2002 SummerSlam, widely regarded as one of the best SummerSlams of all time. So here's hoping they get that stipulation to their matchup. And even if it doesn't, it's their first ever encounter in the ring in singles competition. So for them to go one-on-one in a non-gimmick matchup is big enough. But to add the no DQ stipulation would be awesome. So I very much look forward to that, and here's hoping it does come to fruition at the SummerSlam event in a few weeks. Up next, we had Jericho and Wyatt. I saw a lot of people make the comments that, Wyatt was buried on this show, that because he didn't win, it was the wrong move. I didn't really see that at all. If anything, I was ecstatic that Jericho won, because far too often does he come back and lose, and lose, and lose. And he won a lot more last year than he did in 2012. Don't get me wrong. I've checked out the stats. I remember his run. He beat Wade Barrett. He beat a number of people over the course of his 2013 run. He beat Fandango a number of times. He's beaten Sheamus. He's beaten Swagger. He's beaten a lot of people in his time in the WWE. Specifically last year, he garnered a number of victories, so don't give me that BS. He never beat anybody. But that being said, though, he never really won all that much on pay-per-view. In 2012, I think the only pay-per-view win he won that he garnered was right before he left over Dolph Ziggler at the SummerSlam pay-per-view. In 2013, he lost at Rumble, lost at Chamber, lost at Mania, won at Extreme Rules, lost at Payback, I think was the next pay-per-view after that, wasn't it? I'm pretty sure it was, and he lost at that pay-per-view, lost at Money in the Bank. So in the last 2 times that he's been in the WWE, he's only won 1 pay-per-view matchup. Maybe that will be the case with his latest run in WWE, but the important thing is that he won his first pay-per-view match back. He needs to be set up as a threat to Wyatt, because if Wyatt won here, then why continue the feud? Jericho really has nothing left to prove. He's a 6-time world champion. He's the inaugural undisputed champion. But if he loses to Wyatt 1, 2, 3 in every match they face off in, then Jericho's going to be a joke. Wyatt doesn't really gain anything. So the fact that Jericho won here, I wasn't really a fan of it being done in decisive fashion. Codebreaker 1, 2, 3. I thought it would come via a roll-up. I know that's predictable, but it's kind of what needed to happen, and predictability isn't always a bad thing. But I am glad Jericho won, because Bray Wyatt, when he does eventually beat Jericho, and I'm 100% sure, pretty 99% sure here, confident that he will defeat Jericho 1, 2, 3 in a singles encounter come SummerSlam, Night of Champions, whatever, how long the feud goes on for. Wyatt will win come SummerSlam. Will get his win back. Will end the feud victorious. Jericho is not leaving WWE without putting Wyatt over in the end. So I thought this was a good thing. I was not at all pissed with the match result. I know people are concerned with Wyatt after he lost to Payback and Money in the Bank. Payback, I could see that. I was pissed that he didn't win his feud with John Cena. That kind of seemed like a waste of time in retrospect. I know he lost to Mania. He had a terrible showing at Extreme Rules. It wasn't all his fault, but the booking of that contest was horrendous. And then he lost to Payback, so that kind of feud, that feud in retrospect was kind of a waste. And then the Money in the Bank loss was a multi-man contest. But like I said before, you got to look at the bigger picture here. Wyatt will go over in the end come SummerSlam. So up next, The Miz won a Battle Royal to become the new Intercontinental Champion. I was probably the only one marking out that this happened, given the fact that I'm a major misfit. Not saying it was the right move. I would have loved to see Cesaro win the Intercontinental Championship after losing so much in the last few weeks, and you would think that he would win, and he didn't. But I was fine with The Miz winning here. I know I'm a fan of his, so I'm a bit biased. I understand that. I realize that. I'm admitting that. But he came back. He won against Sheamus cleanly last week on Raw, and I talked about that last week on the show. And I realize that winning an IC title, winning a mid-card title nowadays does not mean as much as it once did. It's not as big of a boost to the credibility of one superstar, especially given the fact that he lost to Dolph Ziggler the next night on Raw in a non-title contest. But they got to stay the course with Miz. They still got to make him mean something, and I thought this win for Miz was good. He's coming off not a hot return, but, coming off of his recent revamping of his character, which I very much enjoy. He's dedicated to it. I know it's reminiscent of the character of Tyler Breeze, and he's stealing that persona, and I am somewhat frustrated at that because it was Tyler Breeze's thing, but The Miz is making it work. He's getting nice heat. I know the crowd reaction to this title change was flat. I understand that, but if they continue to make Miz mean something, he's only been back for a month. You got to continue to make him mean something so he can be built up back to the level that he was at before. I'm not saying that he'll main event at WrestleMania anytime soon, if ever again. I don't expect him to, and I don't think he will. I don't even think he'll become a world champion ever again in his career. But if he continues to be built up as a upper mid-card heel, it will mean something when someone eventually does defeat him for the Intercontinental title, whether it be at SummerSlam, and hopefully he holds the title longer than that if he loses the title to Dolph Ziggler, and I think those two could have a hell of a feud over the Intercontinental Championship. But I didn't really see what was wrong with the end result of this contest. Like I said before, big fan of The Miz. I'm biased in what I'm saying here, but I personally think that if they want to build Miz back up, and it's not going to be another joke with him, and he's not going to be another joke, they need to have him establish credibility as a single star and giving him the IC title. Put him on the right, it's a step in the nice direction, in the right direction. Hopefully they can stay the course with him without ruining his run as IC champion. And I wasn't really mad that he lost on Raw either, because if anything, it sets up the feud with him and Ziggler, which was really, the feud, the seeds were planted for that at Battleground when he eliminated Ziggler from the contest. So it's really a feud made in heaven here, because the two have great matches. They had an awesome match, no pun intended, on Raw, and it will finally give Ziggler something to do for the foreseeable future after being wasted for the last year in pre-show matches and all this bullshit. So hopefully Miz and Ziggler can have a great feud over the IC title. Main event of the show saw John Cena defend his WWE World Heavyweight Championship against Randy Orton, Kane, Roman Reigns in a fatal four-way contest. The outcome was predictable. I understand that. The action of the matchup, the action within the matchup, was very entertaining, so I'll give them that much. They tried their best. They put forth a strong effort. So I commend that. I respect that. They had a good contest here, a very good main event, although the outcome of the matchup was very predictable. Roman Reigns was predicted in defeat. Was not the best way to go off the show with Cena holding the title high above his head. Was not even on Raw the next night because he's out filming a movie as a heel, as a villain, might I add, which is very funny to think about John Cena as a villain in any sort of wrestling, movie, whatever. It's just kind of funny to think about. But, some people were hoping that Seth Rollins would show up and cash in Money in the Bank, that Lesnar would show up, whatever. I'm understandable. I understand why they went out the show this way. But for what it was, I enjoyed the main event. Overall, Battleground, I did not see this as bad of a show as some people are portraying it to be. If anything, I thought it was better than Royal Rumble. It was better than Elimination Chamber. And I would even say it was better than Money in the Bank. It might be on the same level as Extreme Rules and Payback, and nothing will ever come close to topping WrestleMania 30 this year, or, we never know with SummerSlam, we'll have to wait and see, but this pay-per-view Battleground, maybe I'm just thinking about the original incarnation of this show last year. It's funny, like I said on last week's show, I started doing WrestleRant Radio just days after the first ever Battleground pay-per-view, so maybe I'm just thinking of that pay-per-view and how bad and atrocious it was, and the only contest on that show worth watching was the tag team matchup. And some could say that the same happened on this show, but I thought overall there were a lot of good matches. The opening contest, I think we said before, it was an amazing contest. AJ and Paige, fine for what it was. We'll have a better match at SummerSlam. Same thing with Rusev and Swagger. Good booking for the finish. Same thing with Rollins and Ambrose. Same thing with Jericho and Wyatt. The Battle Royal was very entertaining down the stretch. And the main event was entertaining as well, even though the outcome was predictable. So overall, I'm not saying this was a stellar show, but I thought it was very, very good. I enjoyed it. I thought it was nice. I thought it was entertaining. The action was entertaining. There were a number of botches in many of the contests and many of the matches. I understand that, but it didn't really take away from my enjoyment of the contest. I know botches happen, more so on this show than most wrestling pay-per-views. But I thought overall, it was a very good show. And the main purpose of this show was to set up the card for SummerSlam, set up what's going to be going on there, the outcomes of this contest, of these matches, hold back a little bit to deliver on the big stage of SummerSlam. So I understood that, and it succeeded in that respect, because it got me that much more excited for the biggest party of the summer. So with that being said, before we go into my interview with Mr. John Soto as well as John's, we both talked to him, a great roundtable discussion. We'll get to that in just a few minutes. In terms of Raw, I'm not going to go with my full review. I don't think we have time for that. But as a whole, this is another show that I very much enjoyed. The post-pay-per-view Raws, if the show that I went to was any indication, are always very good. This one was no exception. I enjoyed it for what it was. Reigns and Randy Orton and Kane in a handicap matchup. That pretty much sums it up in a nutshell. Reigns defeating them both. I don't know if a Randy Orton-Kane feud is coming up at SummerSlam. I couldn't care less, to be quite honest with you. Randy Orton, I really hope doesn't go babyface. Both Kane and Orton are better as heels, but if one of them had to go babyface, I would go with Kane because he's interchangeable as both. Orton is over as a babyface, and he is as a heel as well, and he works better as a heel. But that's just it. He works better as a heel, so he should not be turned. And both guys could not mean any less at the moment, so I couldn't care less to see them, feud with each other going to SummerSlam. But that is what it is. I'm looking up and down the card here to see what else was really, that stood out to me. The whole Stephanie and Brie Bella segment, I thought that was very good. And I can't believe I'm actually excited to see a Brie Bella matchup or a Stephanie McMahon matchup for that matter. But I thought the way they furthered that feud by having Brie Bella in the crowd, calling her a bitch and doing the slap thing with Stephanie, the arrest thing, that kind of was dragged on a little bit too long for my taste anyway. But for what it was, I thought it was great. Good stuff there. Really enjoyed it. Like I said, I'm actually looking forward to that matchup come SummerSlam, so that should be interesting. What else? Dolph Ziggler and The Miz, like I said before, had an awesome contest. This show is very light on in-ring action, but if there's any one matchup from this show that you should go out of your way to see, it is definitely this contest. And I've been saying this for years now. I mean, these two had their first ever singles encounter on an episode of the Main Event in late 2012. I believe it was in the month of November. Arguably, and in my opinion, the best matchup in main event history for the WWE. Even they acknowledged that when they made a list of the top 10 main event matches. I think on their website a couple of months ago, but for what it was, that was a great contest, and by far one of the biggest highlights of Raw. Dolph Ziggler going over, very much over with the audience, so I look forward to those two feuding at some point over the Intercontinental Championship. And I wrote an article on Bleacher Report about this. I don't know if we're going to see a unified title matchup at SummerSlam. I pitched it after it was kind of teased going into Battleground, with Sheamus potentially winning and becoming the unified Intercontinental and United States champion. But that being said, though, I would not be opposed to it. I could very well see Sheamus versus Ziggler versus Miz in the final three of the Battleground Battle Royal. I could see those three going at it at SummerSlam for the mid-card, the unified mid-card title, which I'm all in favor of. If they're not going to do anything with either title, and I've been saying this for a few months now that the mid-card was slowly being built back up to something meaningful for once, both titles are kind of back down to what they were beforehand, before Barrett and Sheamus won the championships. So it's just kind of a waste now. So I'm not at all opposed to a unified mid-card title. You've already got a unified world title, a unified tag title, a unified Divas title. Why just not make it all even all across the board by unifying these two titles? And I am all for a brand split. Don't get me wrong. Some people are saying, oh, don't unify these titles. Split up the world titles for that matter too. I understand that. I'm with you on that. I want to see a brand split again too. I want to see the roster mean something again. I want to see a Raw versus SmackDown feud again. I'm not saying it's likely. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I want to see it as a fan. But that being said, what's done is done. The world titles have already been merged. They're not going to be deunified anytime soon, if ever again. And I'm pretty sure they will be at some point. But that being said, though, I don't expect them to be anytime soon. I think that's pretty much what I'm getting at here. But that being said, if they're going to unify the world titles, the tag team titles, and the women's championships, then they might as well, unify these mid-card titles as well, especially if they're not going to mean anything. I know some people will say, well, we need more stories in the mid-card division. We've got so much talent that's not being used. Really? I mean, will implementing more fucking belts mean anything? Talent? I mean, the more titles that you have, the less they mean. The less those championships mean. Less is more. I've always said that. It relates to wrestling as well. It's perfect in this case. I mean, the less titles you have, the more they mean. The one world championship finally means something because it's not being compared to the World Heavyweight Championship, which was meaningless for years on end, especially after Edge retired. It lost almost all prestige from that point forward. Orton and Christian had a great feud over it. When Henry won it, it was a great moment. But ever since then, over the last 3 years, that the prestige of that title has been devalued greatly. So for them to unify them, just get it out of the way, might as well do the same thing with the mid-card titles. They're not. If you bring in more championships, who says they're going to feud over them? Ambrose held that U.S. championship for a goddamn year and didn't defend it once within the span of almost 6 months. So that being said, you might as well just go ahead and unify them at this point. I mean, implementing more titles will not do anything to help to the roster at all. If anything, I think unifying them will help the roster because it will make the title chase and make the number one contenders matches mean that much more. Sheamus isn't doing anything with the U.S. title for the most part, so just have him give up that. I mean, he doesn't need a title in the first place, so have him give up that title to The Miz, Ziggler, whoever, and just get it over with already. So any other highlights from Raw? I'm just looking over here. Oh, the Nation of Domination angle. Okay, I really wanted to talk about this. I know we're kind of going over time, going into my interview with Mr. John Soda, but I did want to talk about this very briefly. So, in a match on Raw, Baxel beat Kofi Kingston and Big E. I'm just thinking, okay, this is another one of those mediocre matches that doesn't really mean anything. Kofi and Big E, I guess, have established a friendship on TV. They've been friends behind the scenes for a long time now, but their friendship on TV has just recently been established in their feud against Cesaro and all that kind of stuff. They had a match on Main Event last week. I figured Kingston and Big E would be going over here. However, Rybaxa went over, and I'm thinking, okay, so they go over to establish themselves as threats to the tag team titles. Here we go again. But that wasn't really what the purpose or the focus of this matchup was at all. So after the contest, you see Big E and Kingston standing in the ring, looking disappointed, looking at one another, and I was hoping that one of them was going to turn on the other. Now, the establishment of the friendship between the two, like I said mere moments ago, really has not been established to the point where it would have meant something if one turned on the other, but I was really hoping for a Kingston heel turn, and I think we got it in the way. I think we got it in a way, not in that way specifically, but we did get it in a way, because immediately after their loss and after looking disappointed, out of nowhere comes Xavier Woods, and it was just comical. I mean, the guy just came out of nowhere. It was like Josh Matthews at one time, like, remember all those years back when Josh Matthews would interview someone backstage and he would just seemingly come out of nowhere? It was comical, and that's exactly what Xavier Woods did here. I don't know if he was at ringside or what, but he comes out of nowhere wearing a white suit and glasses, and that look actually fits him. I know he's got the whole funky thing going on down in NXT, looking like a cheap ripoff of Eddie Murphy, and he had the whole Consequences Creed thing going over, the whole Pro USA gimmick going over in TNA. But this gimmick, I mean, much like with Otunga, he's got no talent, but at least they figured out a role for him many years ago as a lawyer, because that's what he does in reality. He's a lawyer, and he went to Harvard, and they branched off that. And the best characters have always been, further establishments of what you are, of your own personality, just expanding it and just taking it to an all-time 10, to an all-time high. And that's what Xavier Woods showed in this promo. It looks like, being, having a PhD, having a master's, being as smart as he is, being, shown in this light with a suit on, with the glasses. It looks awesome. And I saw some people making some comments on some threads saying that he was Malcolm X Xavier Woods. I thought that was pretty awesome, and hopefully they can run with that on WWE TV. But in so many words, Xavier Woods talking about how they were being held down, how we should be stop kissing babies and hugging fat girls and all that kind of stuff. Our time is now. So it was very interesting, and it's been rumored for years now that WWE has always had the idea of, coming together of this Nation of Domination stable. And it all goes back to, like I was saying earlier on in the show, with the copying of TNA and all that bullshit. I don't really see it with the whole beautiful people thing. Maybe with this stable consisting of African Americans, and it's funny because the only African Americans that TNA has are Lashley, MVP, and Kenny King. I'm trying to think of any more, and I went through the roster a couple of days ago and I couldn't find any. And the only black people they have are in a stable together. But I never really saw. I've never really seen the stable of MVP, Kenny King, and Lashley being I never really saw the purpose of that stable being, that they were being held down, that they wanted to come together to go against the white people or the Caucasian, whatever, like the Nation of Domination was, in the late 90s during the Attitude Era. I never really saw the purpose of that stable in TNA being that way. So I don't really know why MVP took offense to it. I'm not saying that WWE didn't copy TNA. I'm not saying that they couldn't. There might be a possibility. I'm not saying they did, though. I just don't think they did, because the purpose of both stables are very, very, very different, in which MVP's stable, consisting of himself, Lashley, and Kenny King, is out for power. They're looking to take the power, take the world title. So that's their thing. With Xavier Woods, Kofi, and Big E, it looks like they're kind of, starting a revolution of sorts after being jobbed out to Rusev for a very long time. And I said on the show a number of months ago, maybe a number of weeks ago, how much they were wasting Xavier Woods, a.k.a. the artist formerly known as Consequences Creed and TNA. The guy's got a boatload of talent, so for him to be involved in any of this is great. I'm very happy to see it, and I'm hoping there'll be a heel stable. I mean, we haven't had a very strong heel stable in a very long time. I mean, I know we have the Wyatt family right now, but with the Shield over with and 3MB gone, and they were never really a stable to begin with, but with 3MB gone and the Shield broken up, I think it's time that we get another very strong heel stable outside of the Wyatt family, and I think a stable consisting of all African Americans involving Xavier Woods, Big E, Kofi Kingston, who I am absolutely ecstatic to see finally turn heel. It's been a long time in the making. I mean, Xavier Woods, Big E haven't been on the roster long enough where they really haven't changed their character. And even Big E went from heel to face, late last year. Kofi Kingston has been with the company for over 6.5 years and has been babyface and has had the same character, the same stagnant character for the entire 6 years that he's been with the WWE. Same theme song, same finisher, same everything. Same smiling face. So now that he's finally switching that up, and I really hope that WWE doesn't drop the ball on this. And I never really thought that another Nation of Domination 2.0 in the PG era would really work, because, with all the racism and stuff like that. But a lot of fans have been always talking about for months now, it seems like it's a popular topic, what's going on with the black wrestlers right now in WWE. Why are they being held down? Why are they being cast as jobbers? Someone on some website, I think a few weeks ago, wrote an article about racism in the WWE. So the fact that WWE is finally putting the stable together of underutilized guys, the timing could not be better. I don't see it. I really hope it pans out and it works out for these guys, and that they can flourish in a PG environment. I don't know if they can push the envelope as much as the Nation of Domination did in the late 90s, but either way, I'm ecstatic to see them finally doing something with Xavier Woods, Big E, and Kofi Kingston, and who knows? Maybe they could be joined next by Mark Henry. I know that was a rumor going around. Mark Henry would make an excellent heavy or a leader of this group, especially considering he was in the original incarnation of the group. People were making jokes that JTG got released at the wrong time, seeing at how, given the fact that he's African-American, that he could have been joining in on the fun and could have finally gotten TV time for once. But if anything, I think the missed opportunity here is that Teddy Long was released. The guy hadn't done anything since he was released, quote-unquote quit or fired from the position of SmackDown General Manager last summer in July, and he really had not been doing anything on TV since, aside from a few cameos on Raw and here and there. But that being said, though, I think if they brought him back in, being the mouthpiece for the heel nomination of Domination, as he was in the late 90s for the original incarnation of the group, I think could have been great. I mean, that could have been great use of Teddy Long, and they can always bring him back. But that would have been cool to see him the mouthpiece of the group, and it looks like Xavier Woods is going to take that role, which is perfect for him. He's probably the best talker of Big E and Kofi easily. So if they bring in Mark Henry, maybe even R-Truth, who, if he brings back his crazy character, oh my God, I'd be the happiest man in the world if they brought back heel R-Truth. That'd be amazing. Maybe even Titus O'Neil. He's not doing anything right now. He's another guy that I think they really dropped the ball on when they turned him heel back in January and split up the primetime players. And hell, who knows? Maybe they can bring back Darren Young after his injury heals up. Maybe he can come back a part of the group. Hell, maybe even David Otunga. I don't know. Maybe he can be the mouthpiece because he can't wrestle for shit. And the fact that he's still under contract and not doing anything, not on TV, working live events or anything, is kind of a disgrace to me personally and a slap in the face to all the people that were released a few weeks ago or about a month ago. But yeah, I love the idea. Here's hoping that they can run with it. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Here's hoping that they don't drop the ball on it so soon or any point within the next few months. So that being said, the last talking point of Raw, Brock Lesnar making his predictable return. I'm not saying that in a bad way, although we expected it. It was necessary. It was a very cool moment. I enjoyed it. So great stuff there. It's only logical that that Lesnar would be going after the title after freaking ending the Undertaker streak at WrestleMania. If he was to do anything else, at SummerSlam, whether it faced John Cena in a non-title matchup or face Sheamus, face whoever else, it wouldn't have made sense. This guy was gunning for the world title long before he ended the streak. So it was only logical for him to come back and be positioned as the number one contender to the title. So I'm very much looking forward to that contest. Brock Lesnar versus John Cena Part 1 at Extreme Rules 2.5 years ago was absolutely amazing. So if that was any sign of what's to come, I'm excited for their encounter, their feud. John Cena was not on Raw last night, which I think might have taken away from the moment a bit that Brock Lesnar did not attack John Cena 2 years removed from Brock Lesnar's return, also in Miami, the night after WrestleMania 28. But that being said, though, I'm excited for what Brock Lesnar and John Cena could produce, not only in their match, but in their feud as well, especially with Paul Heyman working as the mic guy for Brock Lesnar at the end of Raw. I think he cut a great promo promoting their feud and their whole rivalry going into SummerSlam. So Cena and Lesnar should have a very strong matchup and even a stronger feud going into SummerSlam if it's booked properly. So those are my thoughts on Raw and Battleground. Overall, a very good 2 nights of wrestling. I enjoyed Battleground on the WWE Network, had no streaming issues whatsoever on the WWE Network. Monday Night Raw I thought was just as good, if not better. Paige finally turning heel I thought was a great moment. I failed to mention that before. The heel nation of domination finally being formed. I thought that was great. Brock Lesnar making his return. The awesome matchup, no pun intended once again, between The Miz and Dolph Ziggler. And like I said before, the show is very light on in-ring action, but there were so many other monumental moments and occurrences on last night's show that I really didn't mind it. But like I said before, if there's any one match that you should go out of your way to watch from Raw last night, it is by far Miz versus Ziggler. Great matchup, really enjoyed it. And you don't have to be a fan of either guy. I mean, I know I'm a major Miz fan and a fan of Dolph Ziggler, but you don't have to be a fan of Miz or Ziggler to enjoy this contest. You just have to be a fan of wrestling in general. So go back and watch that matchup. Go back and watch Raw and Battleground if you have not had the time yet, because I think both shows were great. But that being said, we are only a little less than 4 weeks away from WWE SummerSlam. I'm looking forward to it. SummerSlam has always been one of the blockbuster events of the year, at least in recent years. I know SummerSlam, the lineage of the event, dates back to late 1980s. But they've really stacked up the show, dating back to 2011. I thought the 2011, 2012, and 2013, especially installments, were all amazing. So here's hoping that WWE can do the same with their upcoming installment with matches like Paige and AJ, Jericho and Wyatt, Cena and Lesnar for the title, Ambrose and Rollins, Orton and Reigns, or Reigns and Triple H, whatever it may be. They're really stacking up the show to be a blockbuster event, and I look forward to it. Here's hoping that they continue to build up the show as a meaningful event, as it looks like it will be on paper. So from there, we move on to our exclusive interview, Mr. John Soto, at PWHF518 on Twitter. We sat down with him on Saturday when we visited the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, one of the administrators at the establishment. A great location, cannot recommend that enough to any wrestling fan. Whether you live in the area or not, check it out, it's great. Posted a video of our experience at the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame on Saturday on my YouTube channel, so make sure to check that out. But Mr. Soto, a great wrestling analyst, one of the biggest wrestling fans I've ever come across. It was awesome talking to him, and I was able to record the interview, record our conversation. We talked about basically everything from WWE to TNA to Kenta coming to the company to the streak ending to wrestling entering a new era. Everything, you name it, we talked about it. It was great. Both John Nichols and myself were able to emerge and engage in such great wrestling talk with Mr. Soto on Saturday, and cannot thank him enough for the opportunity. So with that being said, enjoy the interview. And just a brief note here, I started up the audio mid-conversation. It got 2 minutes in before I got a call on my phone. It ended the podcast, it ended the interview, and after I got the call, I started the podcast back up again, and it was like mid-sentence, so when you hear the interview, it really starts at a very odd place, but from there, it's only about 10 seconds before you'll quickly get into what we're talking about, and all the topics. You'll enjoy it. Let me know what you think on Twitter, on Facebook, whatever it may be. Like I said before, make sure to follow John Soto on Twitter, at PWHF518. Great guy, great, even bigger wrestling fan, so make sure to check him out, and make sure to enjoy the interview.
Syracuse 2CW, Squared Circle Wrestling.
Yeah, I've heard of that, yeah.
Really, Matt Hardy's wrestling for him.
Yeah, he does a lot of indie stuff, Matt,
months,
yeah.
I think September he'll be with them.
Yeah, Matt Hardy, yeah. And this year.
They're a really, really good group of guys. Really good. And they always have big names, like, I think last Sunday they had a show. And the Dudleys won their tag team belts.
Oh, really? So what are they, 24-time tag team champions or something like that? Yeah, they're going to the TNA Hall of Fame this year.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, the Dudleys are.
Devon just came back.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
Yeah, so 1 year we had TNA here, did a show for us.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I heard of that.
Yeah.
So you guys do matches and stuff too? Don't you guys do exclusive matches during the Hall of Fame ceremony?
Us, we can't say that we.
Is there like indie events or?
Yeah, that's exactly. What
yeah,
it is.
yeah.
The indie company will come in, they'll put on a show for us right here in town.
Yeah.
Like this past one in May with 2CW was like a block away.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Building, up this way. TNA did the high school here, Amsterdam High School.
Yeah.
That's where they did theirs. So it's a good time. It's definitely a mix of talent. You have the older guys, the legends, and then you have the newer guys that TCW brings.
Speaking of TNA, what do you think of their new creative direction?
I like it.
The new reboot and everything?
I think it's going to go in the right direction. Honestly.
Finally.
I mean,
the last Impact on Thursday I thought was great. I thought it was great.
I thought exactly.
I mean,
compared to what they've done in the past, that was great.
In comparison, I feel like the days of old will never be,
A six-sided ring won't change anything overnight, you know what I mean?
When they used to do the weekly pay-per-views that you're talking about?
It was like when they first started.
NWA, TNA.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
That was great.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Even after that, like 05, 06, when they had their own identity.
When Jarrett was running it.
Yeah, exactly. When Jarrett was around and was in full force,
I think Jarrett's new thing is going to be great, too.
Global Force Wrestling, yeah.
I think that's going to be great because it's all the
it's another alternative,
newer, Yeah, the
competition.
Talent. I think Ring of Honor, they might be going in the right direction. I'm not sure. Who knows?
Yeah, they were just recently on pay-per-view.
I feel like Ring of Honor's been treading water, not necessarily.
No, but just recently,
anything.
though.
Just stay
they just had their one.
They had their Best in the World show. They brought AJ Styles is there now. Bad influence. So.
Yeah. I can't believe they got rid of Bad Influence.
Yeah.
And they kept the.
How do you not have anything to do with them? With Bromance. So come on. We've been watching Robbie E since his indie days.
And then the carnival they have there.
Oh, the menagerie, come on, dude. Mike Knox at the head. Mike Knox at the helm of that. Knox and Nux. Give me a break, dude.
Yeah, but I think
TNA.
I think they're headed down the right path right now. Honestly, by the end of summer they'll have Dixie Carter written off TV.
Yep.
So that'll be nothing.
Oh, because of the Bully Ray angle.
Yeah. Then I don't want to spoil it for you, but
I'm not a big spoiler guy. Yeah, but I think I know what you're talking about though.
She'll be written off TV and just some really cool things that towards the end of summer. Mm-hmm. I know they're setting up for Hardy Boys against the Dudleys TLC match.
Yeah, they're doing that in the Wolves too.
Summer, so.
That's awesome.
They have Muda next week.
Yeah,
they have Muda on there. They just got in a contract agreement with Wrestle One in Japan. Okay. So Tajiri will be there next week. I don't know if he'll be on TV, but or the next set of tapings. I don't know if it'll be next week. But I think they're going in the right direction. After Hogan and that guy.
Eric Bischoff, come on.
Hogan's fine in WWE because he has no power.
Exactly. In TNA, the problem was that even if they have him, it's not considered a bad thing. But if he doesn't go out there and promote the company that he's working for, then what's the point?
Yeah.
Why even have him? It's a big waste of money.
Yeah, his way of thinking, him and Bischoff.
Yeah, it ran it down the tubes.
It was not good.
What are your thoughts on Bound for Glory, their WrestleMania, going to Japan this year?
I think that's huge.
That is big.
I really think that's
huge. A big thing. It's a big risk because it won't be live or anything, but pay-per-view isn't their central moneymaker anyway. But the fact they're going there, it doesn't matter if it's live or 7 days later, it's going to be sick.
That is huge, and I think it'll work out really well.
And I
think that might be their... if they do everything right from now until then, that might be their big turning point.
Or jumping point.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing, though, because their big focal point, their big goal should be to strive to be different from WWE. Yeah. And WWE will never have... They can't even have another WrestleMania in England or something. They never did, but they'll never do that, unfortunately. Or SummerSlam. Yeah, they won't even do another pay-per-view outside of the country, much less a WrestleMania.
Why is that?
Because time differences and the budget. Yeah, Canada. Come on, go back to Canada at least.
They did Toronto in 2002.
Yeah, I know, but that was 10 years ago, and they haven't gone back since. Last time they did a WWE pay-per-view in Montreal was with Pat Patterson on it was Breaking Point 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. So the fact that TNA is going to Japan is big.
Yeah. It's a big deal.
Yeah, that's gonna be pretty sweet.
I think something big will happen. I don't know for sure, but I think something big will happen.
The fact that Muda, one of the biggest legends in the business, is there.
I've always been a fan of Muda, so just hearing his name is like,
exactly.
Man, that guy's just, I don't know how the hell he's still wrestling.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, because he was around when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not that old, but I'm just saying, he was old then.
Yeah,
he
exactly.
was already going bald, and but that guy, you can't beat Muda, man. His character always evolved, and it always was some kind of messed up crap.
Well, my concern right now for TNA is that they might have a similar WCW effect, in that they're not really cropping young talent, whereas they're putting all their chips on one guy, Goldberg. Because I don't really see EC3 a little bit, but I don't really see the young guy that they're putting all their cards on. I mean, they brought Rhino and Dreamer back, and I get you're in New York.
Yeah. That's their big market. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I mean, I really want to see them push a young guy, and
they need to focus on their originals. Like they did that with Eric Young. I mean, not the right way. He was like a joke for the longest time, and then they just gave him the title. I mean, he's a great guy, and they did it to promote his TV show and stuff, for the most part. But someone like a Bobby Roode is a guy that you can build a company around. That guy is great. That guy is the mold that WWE's looking for.
I thought that him and
James Storm, one of the best tag teams, I think.
I thought they were great when they were together.
I
think James Storm is
another
could be a main event player. They gave him the title for what?
2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah. And that was it. He was too Southern, was there reason?
Or something like that.
He was too Southern.
And he was over as a babyface, too. But now, even now, as a heel, he's doing great work. He dedicated the role.
Isn't he putting Sonata over right now?
Yeah, they're doing some feud with that or something.
Sonata ends up going with him, sorry, spoiler. But he ends up turning heel.
Sonata?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
So.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
That'll be.
That's interesting. That's something that's good because Sonata, since they brought him in, exactly. Because the guy had no personality.
Well, I mean, that's how you get a personality.
Exactly.
How you gonna team up some guy from Japan with this Southern rocker type guy? It's different. I like it.
Exactly.
And I think they could run with it, and hopefully they will.
Well, now I'm excited.
But
speaking of Japanese talent. WWE just signed Kenta.
Oh, it's huge.
What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, Jesus Christ, that's huge. Excuse my language, but that's huge.
That's okay.
That is huge. When I read, I mean, I had been reading about it for weeks.
Yeah, it's been going on for months. Yeah.
When they had the video of it, I'm sure you guys saw the video.
Yeah, the signing.
And I shared it out there, and I put a little thing out there. He's just he's phenomenal.
Yeah, he is great.
Kenta, I had the pleasure of seeing him live at Ring of Honor, and
with his matches with Bryan at all?
No, I saw him against another Japanese, Marufuji.
Oh, okay.
In Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
When this was years ago. Do you guys watch Ring of Honor?
I do, yeah. I just started getting into it just a couple months ago. It's great, but I haven't been watching it since it started.
Back then, their competition was a company called CZW.
Yeah, I
remember them.
Yeah. They're still going today.
Yeah. So they were doing like an invasion angle.
Yep.
And I was a huge Claudio Castagnoli,
Antonio Cesaro, whatever, yeah.
Chris Hero fan.
Yeah. Cassius Ohno, whatever.
Yeah, Necro Butcher, Necro Butcher.
Yeah.
That was the first night I actually saw that crazy guy.
Yeah.
But they started that angle when I was there, and Kenta was there that night, and I've never ever been to another show that I got that into.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was fun.
As a fan, definitely.
They didn't give any hints to it happening.
Mm-hmm.
It just happened during a match. Mm-hmm. Castagnoli came out. He was supposed to be with Ring of Honor. Mm-hmm. And Chris Hero came out, and he was a CZW guy, but they were the Kings of Wrestling, and everybody knew that.
Yeah.
And
great tag team.
They were, teasing like they were about to brawl, and then Claudio turned on Ring of Honor. It was just.
And that's how the Kings of Wrestling formed?
It was no. They formed before that, but they wrestled separately. One was for CZW, one was for Ring of Honor.
Oh, gotcha.
And people knew they had that connection outside of Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
And everybody just thought they were gonna clash right there. One standing up for each other's company. And they completely swerved everybody, and then Necro Butcher ran out, and they just destroyed people. Oh, man, Samoa Joe was there.
Joe.
Bryan Danielson was there. Oh man, it was phenomenal, and Kenta was there with Marufuji, and that was huge. I think that was the first time I saw him live, and he did the go to sleep.
Yeah, before
back then.
Back then.
And then
you
Punk
compared
brings
the
it
two,
out, and I was like, oh.
Brian does the knee now too. He does the running knee.
The running knee,
whatever,
which no one ever sells. Which really,
I don't know what they're gonna do with Kenta. He said that he's willing to change his name. He's willing to.
He said he's going to start from the bottom up.
Start from the bottom up, and that's somebody that doesn't need to. But hey, if
can I raise
somebody
one point?
that can do it.
The hype behind Kenta reminds me a lot of Sin Cara.
This is
who everyone was excited about joining. Oh, we're gonna.
But he didn't know English. That was the biggest problem.
I think he was too fast. He was too lucha.
Yeah.
Instead of WWE. WWE is its own style.
And Kenta,
and I think
he's going to NXT first, isn't he?
Yeah.
And Sin Cara, they just went, boom, main roster.
Put him right on.
First match was like Primo or something. You know, I'll
admit it. I was jumping up and down when I found out they signed him because I'm a big Lucha Libre fan.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy crap, Mystical. You know, he'll be great. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't work out.
Now, is Hunico still doing that?
Yes. Him and another big Lucha Libre guy they have down in NXT is that Kalisto guy.
He's going to be like the next guy, I think. The next,
they want
like
him
the
to
next Lucha star.
Yeah.
He's talented and he can go.
He was Samurai del Sol or something.
That's him?
Yeah.
Oh, I've heard that name before. I didn't know that was the same
that's
guy.
Him. And they want him to be like the next Rey Mysterio.
Yeah, well, the thing is that they tried it with Sin Cara and they messed it up. Del Rio, when they turned him babyface for a while.
And then he started doing a little lucha. And double turn.
Yeah.
He's like, I like Del Rio. I'm a Del Rio fan, but
he's a good wrestler.
He's like,
he's still the man.
Jobber, man.
Yeah, they got to do something, you know? They got to switch it up with him. Like, give him back his personality with, like, the Cars and Ricardo.
Well, they can't now.
Yeah, they can't now. Yeah, exactly.
Ricardo's freaking awesome wrestler. I don't know if you guys ever seen him. He does that El Local gimmick.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, him and they had a tag team going.
Yeah, and now Kalisto's tag team with Hunico.
Oh, really? Because I heard, in the most recent show, they said that they were going to do something.
That's pretty cool.
I'm going to find a tag team.
Was Ricardo on TakeOver?
TakeOver.
NXT TakeOver?
Who?
No.
Ricardo?
No.
Rodriguez.
No.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
They faced the Ascension. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
Yes, he was. You're right.
They lost.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know who the other guy was.
I remember saying, I was like, he looks so bad. Like, just not in shape.
Well, I mean, it's
he's
different.
good, though.
Yeah. He can go for a guy
his
his
matches
size,
as, I think he wrestled under Chimera or something like that. I don't know, something like that. He has some really good, badass matches.
Yeah. I was hoping that when they broke him and Del Rio up, they would transition him into a wrestler role. But then he just did the whole RVD thing, and that was just weird.
That was odd.
That was a very odd pairing.
I was still waiting for... I really wanted Ricardo to turn on RVD. Because they could have done so much with Del Rio RVD. And then the next month they're doing Del Rio singing. I'm like, all right.
And then he lost that, and he hasn't been the same since. It was funny, because he was in the Money in the Bank main event. This is what I was going to tell you last night, but I forgot. He was in the main event of the pay-per-view for the world title at Money in the Bank, like 3 weeks ago. Next night when we went to Raw, on the Superstars taping, facing R-Truth.
I know.
Like, that's what I mean. Like, you can't. It's so weird, you know? It's bizarre.
I don't understand how they think. But hey, they're a different kind of
they're a whole different machine.
But I don't know. But they have so many guys they have talent.
Yeah.
So I kind of understand that, we have this roster.
Yep.
Everybody on there is mega talented.
Yeah.
What do you do with them?
Yeah, exactly, like a Dolph Ziggler.
Some of them have to be jobbers. Some of them are the ones that are going to...
You can't push them all, but...
Ziggler, they could push.
That started making me mad. I was talking this last night.
Really stupid.
At least they don't have a lot of underutilized, like a lot of talented guys that are not using them. Like someone like an Ambrose and a Rollins and a Roman Reigns. How often do you get a stable... That's a great stable for one thing, and they all go places. And it's only been a month. I mean, it's pretty premature to say. I mean, they could be all jobbers by the end of the year. You never know. I don't think so, but you know what I mean. But in the last month, they're all over. They all have great characters, and they're all very good wrestlers. Some more than others, but they all got direction.
Yeah, they all have huge direction. They weren't expecting that for Ambrose.
Yeah, not at all.
They weren't expecting that at all.
Huge Ambrose.
You're like, Roman Reigns next big guy, and he will be. Nothing against that.
I think Roman Reigns is going to be huge.
He's got to learn how to talk. He's got to learn how to talk.
He does.
He's improved though. He's improved.
Oh my God! On SmackDown,
At least he's saying more than believe that.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
He's come a long way. Yeah.
But he'll get there.
Yeah.
That's why they're taking so long, teasing the belt thing. And,
Yeah.
You know, because he's not fully together.
He's not
yet,
there yet,
You know,
but
they're hoping by WrestleMania he'll be. They want that to be his moment. WrestleMania.
I think
Cena.
Unless they swerve, unless they keep trying to swerve because they're sick of the internet stuff.
Yeah. 2015 Royal Rumble winner, I think, right there, Roman Reigns. I'm telling you right now. I think some people, I think JR predicted this or something, that Reigns wins the Royal Rumble and Lesnar at SummerSlam wins the title. Which, this is the issue, because Lesnar has to win the championship by this point. You just ended like the Undertaker's streak, but he can't appear on TV for like 6 months straight. You know what I mean? Some people are saying...
He's only got in his contract 20.
Yeah, and he's not going to do any more dates. Yeah.
Something like that.
He's not going to sign them for more dates. He doesn't care.
He gets paid...
millions of dollars as it is.
I think his last contract he signed was $5 million.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money in wrestling.
For
For 25 shows... Why do I
for like
work
20
more?
minutes?
You're going to pay me $5 million to sit.
Come on Raw for 10 minutes to do a segment, go back home to Minnesota.
Not even talk, and then...
Yeah.
Oh, he can't talk. That's a good thing.
That's
a great thing.
Heyman's a lifesaver.
And that's why they took Heyman away from Cesaro.
Yeah.
The last probably week or
Are
so.
they doing that for good now?
No.
I don't know for sure.
No.
We'll find out on Sunday.
It's not for sure.
Yeah.
It's not for sure. It's just so that Heyman can focus with Lesnar.
That's the issue, though, because my biggest concern was that, they had to give the big Curtis Axel push, and they gave him the IC title, which was a cool moment. Like on Father's Day, it was awesome. And then...
I think it was in Minnesota.
No, I think it was on Chicago. It was on like Payback or something like that.
Payback 2013.
Yeah. It was,
but
there was some kind of significance to it.
Yeah, exactly. No,
it was Father's Day.
It
was Father's Day.
And then they went to go on to do the Punk Lesnar feud, but Axel was still with Heyman.
Yeah.
And the IC title was completely overlooked.
He had too much talent.
And he was jobbing to Punk every week. Axel was, and he was like the fall guy for Heyman. So that's what I'm worrying now that they'll do with Cesaro. Now that Lesnar is going to feud with Cena. You know what I mean? So.
And they try to throw Ryback in there. There's too many.
Yeah, right. That was a bust. Ryback was dead in the water by that point.
Yeah,
I was a big Ryback fan, but they killed that.
Yeah.
They killed that.
I guess a lot of people didn't like to work with him.
I guess he's pretty rough.
Unsafe, I guess.
Yeah, and he gave Ziggler a concussion a couple months ago. Yeah, almost ended his career again.
Ziggler, man, he gets one more concussion, he's got to be done.
Yeah,
God.
That's
Corey
one
Graves.
reason why they don't want to push him. Because they're like,
this
guy takes one crazy bump, he's got a concussion.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, getting kicked in the face with a ladder by Jack Swagger.
Yeah, that was crazy. And Swagger injured Barrett too, and it was funny because like the internet hated Barrett for hated Swagger for like all of that week because he injured Barrett at like the SmackDown tapings or something. Next week, most over guy in the show. You know what I mean? Like people can switch their opinions in a second based on like the booking of their guy, but it's crazy. But
if you're a fan, you're a puppet.
Yeah, exactly. We'll just go along with what Vince wants to do.
Today you love Matt Hardy. If he went back and jumped the biggest guy there.
Yeah, exactly.
Screw this guy. Yeah,
exactly.
But that's how it is, man. That's
what
makes it fun.
Seth Rollins was the perfect thing. It's like when he turned heel, like no one saw that coming. No. And he was the perfect heel because
thought it would have been Ambrose.
Yeah, and I was like, I legitimately hated Seth Rollins, like as a fan, not as a person, but like as a fan, I'm like, this guy's an a-hole because he just broke up my favorite stable out of nowhere, and this guy just turned out as like best friends or whatever. Like I hated Rollins, and that's what makes for a great heel. You know what I mean? If you feel like real hatred of these guys, and that's how like heels got over like decades ago. Exactly.
I mean, I thought it was questionable why they chose Rollins to be the one to break away, but I'm glad that they're.
It was a swerve.
I know,
it worked well. They've been doing the best feud in the company right now.
They got my hopes back in it because I thought they were going to do Reigns and Ambrose run together and Rollins.
Well, they should have like in a backstage segment or something. They should have like solidified it, like, hey, let's go our separate ways, but we'll be like allies or something, you know.
I'm just glad they're all doing their own thing right now.
Roman Reigns, what they should do, because the Shield, 5 years down the line, we'll be back together for a reunion show or something.
It'd be like a DX.
Exactly, but what they should do is that, like after DX broke up, Triple H didn't use the DX music. So with Roman Reigns,
get it out of there.
Get the Shield attire. So when that music hits, Sierra Hotel, India Echo, Lima Delta, the Shield, and that music goes off, it's going to be the markout moment of the century, you know? So.
Yeah.
It's got to switch. They got to give him his own identity, too. Ambrose, you were talking about this last night.
I love the way creative is presenting him, because I was nervous when they broke up. I was like, how are they going to present all of them? What's going to be their new attire, their new music? And I think that his character now that he has is crazy. Like, the jeans, the white... I didn't think he could pull that off.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm surprised they're letting him wear that attire because Wyatt...
good point. Luke Harper did
the same thing.
Exact
thing. But again, it's you don't even think of put two and two together that because there's two different characters.
Completely different.
I mean?
Ambrose has always been a great mic worker.
Yeah.
But like just now, he's been
Getting
given the
into
ball.
wrestling.
Yeah. Just let him go. Just let him just free reign.
Hardcore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
Extremely.
It's John Moxley, right? Yeah. I've seen pictures of like blood running down his face. It's gross.
The crazy stuff.
Yeah.
I think he got what was it? Weed whacker.
Oh my God! Really?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Whipped him with a weed whacker. That stuff.
Yeah, I'm not a fan
I
of.
used to like it.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I was like,
Yeah.
oh man, this is great death matches. Because when I was younger, me and my cousins used to watch all of Japan FMW. Was a company a long
crazy
time
stuff.
ago.
Yeah.
And they used to do a death match tournament.
Yeah.
And of course, that famous Foley and Terry Funk
Oh
King
my
of
God!
the Death Match.
Years gone. Yeah.
You know,
It's crazy.
so I used to love that. But
Watching that stuff
now
is
it's like,
it's a little strange.
why would you want to do that?
Yeah, it's kind of like disgusting to watch.
You know, I'm a Necro Butcher fan, but I can't really watch any of his matches because
put him through a table spot or something. Okay, that's cool. But even like watching Hardy when he did the Swanton, and like that was a cool spot. As a fan, very cool spot. But I mean, like that's gotta kill you.
Everybody gets on the guy. Oh, he's a drug addict or was whatever.
Yeah,
You know. Okay, well now you know why.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's doing this for us.
the reason why those spots are so cool, though, is because you don't see them all the time.
Exactly.
That's what I like that Vince McMahon grasped that maybe Paul Heyman didn't. When every match is a barbed wire fire on the ring, like it's cool for one show, but how about a wrestling match?
Yeah, exactly.
I remember I was watching an ECW rewind on the network, and they had Eddie Guerrero versus Dean Malenko on a freaking Broadway.
Yeah.
And
2 out of 3 falls.
I don't know if it was that particular match. Did they have a run or anything? It was just this one match.
Yeah, they had a little mini feud.
All right, but they were doing this on ECW, and the crowd was dead. I'm like,
it was a phenomenal match
I'm like,
too.
what more could you ask for to
They had
wrestling
Benoit
show?
there, Mysterio.
I remember
Jericho.
there was like a disturbance in the crowd, and the crowd was more focused on like saying like kick him out, like here's Dean Malenko and Eddie freaking Guerrero wrestling in the ring, like,
WrestleMania, caliber match.
I'd give up college.
It's a different time though, you know. Like I mean, I know the Attitude Era, and even still is considered one of the greatest, if not the greatest era in wrestling. And I understand that rightfully so. But you go back, you compare today's wrestling to that. This is like amazing compared to what the wrestling back is. The stories are better back then, obviously by a long mile.
I want to contest what you're saying. I wouldn't say that. I think that right now, what you're expected to be able to do is what overachievers were doing in the Attitude Era. Like right now, like if you want to work TV, if you want to run with the ball, you got to be able to hit certain spots, do certain things. That back in the late '90s, it was just like if you could do that, like good job. Like,
exactly.
So, but I think that what you're expected of now is just like what they were overachievers were looking to do is just what you're expected to do now. It's like bare minimum. You got to be able to do that. But
exactly.
It's different, man. It's different, and it's gonna keep getting different.
Yeah.
I mean, it evolves. It evolves like anything else.
You know, this is a down period right now, but once that one thing happens to turn it.
Yeah, that one Austin promo, like the Punk pipe bomb. I mean, it wasn't like didn't revolutionize.
That was supposed to be
big.
The big thing, and it did turn it for a little while because you were like, holy shit, is that a real shoot?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and it launched Punk's career into what it was.
Yeah.
Well,
before that left.
At WrestleMania 30, I had all these feelings of nostalgia. I felt like I was watching WrestleMania 12, Shawn Michaels holding the title. Also, the way Michael Cole was announced, and I thought it reminded me of JR, saying the Austin era has
that
begun.
too. That
WrestleMania 30 I got all like these emotions,
emotions
of like, wow, it's really a new time.
Ryan went over the streak ends. It's like the close of one chapter and the
beats
start
Triple
of another.
H clean. Makes Batista tap out.
Yeah, clean.
It feels like new things are happening.
Yeah.
It was a big era, or I mean, it started a new era, like the reality era, whatever they call it. You know.
We'll name it in 10 years.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see where they go next.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's up.
Yeah. Hopefully.
All right.
I hope.
All set?
All set.
Nice meeting you, man.
Nice meeting you.
Nice talking to you.
Good
Nice talking to you. Hope you guys enjoyed it.
And that'll wrap up our conversation with John Soto of Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame in Amsterdam, New York. A great conversation. Once again, thanks to Mr. Soto for allowing us to talk to him, for allowing us to come into the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame on Saturday. Had a very good time, and I cannot recommend it enough to wrestling fans who live in the area. And even if you don't live in the area, make the trip. Whether you live in California, Texas, halfway across the world, make the trip to Amsterdam, New York, the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. It's a great location. It's a great place to be for all wrestling fans. We'll post a video of the event, of our experience at the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame on Saturday on my YouTube channel, so make sure to check that out for exclusive content and what the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame basically entails. It's a heaven for all wrestling fans, like I said before. But once again, thanks to Mr. Soto for the interview. He's a great guy. You can follow him on Twitter at PWHF518. I believe that's correct, not 158. I think I typed it in wrong on Saturday when I followed him. And I believe it is PWHF518. You can also follow the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame on Twitter. Their official Twitter account is at PWHF. So, that being said, like I said, great conversation with Mr. Soto. Very much look forward to seeing him once again, having our paths cross again in the very near future. Hopefully next year when we visit the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame in Amsterdam, if we go camping in that area once again. Great meeting him, great talking to him. We'll talk to him. We'll catch him down the road. But next week, like I said earlier on in the show, at the start of the program, we will be having John Nichols on not only next week, but the week after. Very good friend of mine, diehard wrestling fan, as big of a fan of wrestling, if not a bigger fan of wrestling than I am, as I should say. But we sat down last week, or this past Saturday, after we went to the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, we sat down that night and talked about almost everything. But part one of our conversation, which will air next week, talks about the WWE Network, breaking it all down for you folks in every aspect of the WWE Network, and basically, in a nutshell, explaining why you, the folks at home, should have it if you don't already. So with all of that being said, thanks for listening to today's show, folks, to my Raw review, Battleground thoughts, and to, of course, to our exclusive interview with Mr. Soto. I very much appreciate it. But we'll be back next week with my exclusive interview with Mr. John Nichols. But in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at WrestleRant. Find me on Facebook at Graham G.S. Matthews. Bleacher Report, same thing. And YouTube, same thing. You can check out this show, WrestleRant Radio, every single week right here on nextairwrestling.weebly.com. And if you want more of my thoughts on Raw, Battleground, and everything else going on in the world of wrestling in written form, make sure to check out nextairwrestling.weebly.com for my reviews of Raw, SmackDown, Main Event, NXT, Superstars, Impact, you name it, I review it. All the stuff is up there on the website, and if you're listening to the show right now, odds are you are listening to it from the website, so you're already on it, you know where to find it. That being said, we'll catch you guys next week. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and we'll see you then.